The NFL stands for not for long.
Set, Sharga and Armstead. Roll out, Walker still running out. Looks to the left, wide open, Thompson touchdown. Colin Thompson with the touchdown. There was nobody within 20 yards of him.
What a catch off the bobble. Colin Thompson scoops it up.
Lofting corner, the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. The first NFL touch for Colin Thompson is a score.
Many words are left to say, so they get left behind.
All right, we're here with the great Dan Brown. Thanks for joining us today, Dan. We are going over the best cities you have played in. What's your favorite city you played in and why?
Best city. So I played Baltimore, Chicago, New York, lived in New Jersey. I would have to go with Chi-Town. First of all, great sports city, all the sports. From a football standpoint, win or lose, I thought the fans were always supportive and not in a nagging type of way. It's a city who wants to win, and we didn't always win, and we didn't win a lot until 2018, but they were always very supportive. Always good to me and my family. I think it's a great food town. You can get almost anything you want. And like you and I have talked about, if it wasn't so cold, probably top city in America.
The best player you played against and why?
Without a doubt, Khalil Mack, who I never played with in an actual, or played against in an actual game, but I always said that the best players in the NFL or the best players are the ones who practice the hardest. Dude practiced the same every single rep, and unfortunately I was on the scout team and had to deal with it, and the dude was a monster. He was a nice guy though, because he knew he could destroy me on every single play, like he destroys 300-pound tackles, but he's by far his ability, his get off, I've never seen anybody's get off as fast as his, and his speed to power, the way he can bend around an edge. You know, the arm bar, you've seen the arm bar he puts like in the tackle's chest. I got it, and he would hold me up. He would catch me and be like, I got you. But him, by far, the most dominant player I've practiced or played against.
He always had like the biggest biceps too.
It was scary.
He was just
Because
freak.
if you ever watch him like get in his stance, like he wasn't a stand-up guy. He was like this, and I think he does it on purpose. Like in his stance, hands on the ground, he flexes, and like all I could stare at was just like his biceps, and he's about to get off, and I knew I had no shot.
Yeah, he was a stud. Another guy you played against was Terrell Suggs in practice. What was he like? Any good Terrell Suggs stories?
He's just we used to call him the Big Ugly. I mean, he's hard to look at. You know, like he's a massive human being, and he wasn't like quick twitch. It was just he's just a strong human being, and there's nothing you could do. But he was a good dude in the locker room. I got a couple of Terrell Suggs stories. So we did the rookie show, and I was an undrafted kid, so I basically went last. And you know, I'd been getting some crap about, you know, not going yet. And Steve Smith came up to me. He was like, "Hey, have you gone yet?" I'm like, "No." He was like, "Well, what are you gonna sing?" I was like, "I don't really know." He was like, "Well, don't sing any of that white crap." He was like, "You go out there and get out of your comfort zone." I was like, "Yes, sir." So I went up there. I sang "Trap Queen" by Fetty Wap, and I sang like the first like 3 verses. Got a standing ovation. You know, you had to get up there and you had to say your signing bonus, and of course mine was 0 because I was a tryout kid. Walked into the locker room because we had these metal lockers in the middle lockers for rookies. Mine was right across from Suggs. Walked up to me and gave me $20. Says, "There's your signing bonus." And then when I actually made the team, we had this the row of rookies lockers on the way to the bathroom. They called it MLK Boulevard, Martin Luther King Boulevard. I don't know why they did. They just called it that. Mine was the very last locker. I brought this brand new Suave for Men 3-in-1 like citrus scented body wash. Brand new. Walked in the next day, it's gone. So I wait for everybody to leave. Me and Nick Boyle, we wait for everybody to leave, and I go around each locker and I say, I'm trying to find it. Someone's definitely stole it. Terrell Suggs stole it. 4 days later, puts it back with this much in, puts it back in my locker. And I was like, I never called him out on it because I was too afraid of him, but the dude was stealing my soap.
I guess I have a Terrell Suggs story too. We played in the Hall of Fame game together when Urlacher and Ray Lewis were in the Hall of Fame. So Bears Ravens, and it was Suggs probably last year in Baltimore, one of his last years, and he was wearing an Arizona Diamondbacks jersey, walking around the Hall of Fame, the NFL Hall of Fame while we were there. And I remember vividly me just shitting myself seeing him, and then you guys messing with me being like, oh, he's playing tomorrow, oh, he's playing tomorrow, he's gonna destroy you, Colin. And he never played, of course, and he was walking toward us, and I'm like, oh my god, like I hope he's not playing tomorrow.
There's no way.
And of course no starters played, and Dan and I played a million reps, and I played horrible. So that's another story for another day. I had my first
I didn't play good either.
I had my first catch, but I had some drops.
I dropped one across the middle and got cracked by the safety.
I did not get
Drew a 15-yard penalty, which is like why I dropped it, but
I
also threw a terrible cut block. Like
I never threw a good cut block.
A very terrible cut block.
I don't think I've ever thrown a good cut block. I wasn't comfortable doing them, like putting your neck around someone's knee. Like I really just go block them.
Gilby said that like in the staff meeting that like that cut block was like so bad that it like gave people like a lot of wrong like mixed feelings about me.
And that's the NFL, folks. Like one thing you do can last forever, even though you put a whole body of work in your whole career. So I digress. All right, Joe Flacco stories. I know you have a couple, or at least one. I know you think really highly of Joe.
I thought he was just a cool dude.
My first Joe Flacco like real like interaction. So they had like this group. It was Joe, Justin Tucker, Kyle Juszczyk, like Morgan Cox, all those guys, Sam Cook, like they called themselves, like they were just always together. And Nick Boyle and I had kind of like infiltrated our way into that group somehow. Nick's a very outgoing like clown in the locker room, and I was his buddy, so I think that's why we kind of infiltrated. But we were sitting in rookie year, and I'd finally made like the active roster. It was probably like in December, and we were all sitting at the lunch table, and they passed out our checks in the locker room, paper checks. And I got one, and Joe got two, and he was sitting right next to me, and I remember just like sitting at the table, and I was just kind of like, I just kept eyeballing him. He was like, you want to see him? I'm like, hell yeah. Like, so he opens the first one and gives it to me. It's like, after taxes, $250,000.
For the week.
This is for his sign-in bonus.
Okay.
And I was like, he was like, yeah, that's part of my sign-in bonus. This is, per week. He gets $250 per week after taxes. And then the other one, for his salary, opened up $750 a week. This guy was pulling in $1 million a week. And I was like, mine after taxes rookie year was $12,500. I was like, I'm gonna walk into Wells Fargo and ask him just to deposit this. Like, you can't walk into Wells Fargo with $1 million and say, can you deposit this for me? Like every week, that's $17 million. Like you shouldn't be keeping like that, like in just a Wells Fargo bank. So I was like, what do you do with that? And he was like, well, my dad handles my finances, so it just gets straight wired to him. And I was like, at that point, I was like, this is insane. Like $1 million a week. And then, but I also reconnected with Joe in New York, and he's always been a good dude.
Before I forget, we didn't have this written down here, but we discussed having you on before. There's some good stories of me and you playing together that I think we need to tell the group. So our first time we met, and a good story early on about me and being a teacher's pet.
Yeah, 2017. We're not very good. I don't even know what week you got there, but we were probably 2-6 when you got there. Yeah, and Adam Shaheen was either Ben Broniker,
And then I came in. And
Deion Sims, and yeah, and we were all, we'd already, how groups are. You kind of make your clique, and everybody knows everybody, and then you're halfway through the season, everybody's like, you know exactly what you're getting, and then a new guy comes in, and you're trying your best to fit the mold of our group. I've been there, I've done that, but you came in this one week, and we were playing, granted, now that I know what I know now, it's whatever, but you were a rookie, and I was a vet, somewhat a vet, my third year, and you did the old bring in a bunch of clips for the coach, and everybody, I remember just thinking, this guy is such a teacher's pet, dude. It just, like, who does that? Like, this guy's trying to undermine us. He's trying to play more than us already. But like, knowing that I know you now, you're just a fan of the game. Like, and you'd already played that guy, so you knew his tendencies. But I remember everybody just being in the room, especially myself, and I was like, look at this rookie, like, try hard. And then it just got funny because the teacher's pet thing kind of rolled. Remember you brought Tabes a bucket of apples because, teacher's pet. It was hilarious. But then 2018, well, I always liked you. I always did. I always gave you a hard time, but I always liked you. And then 2018 is when you go, for me, it's like, especially with teammates, when you go through some stuff, like that's when like I really started to bond with like that person. And then 2018 when they weren't playing any starters and you and I were logging 50 snaps a game in 5 preseason games with the Hall of Fame game, and you and I are the only ones playing and we're going through it, like that's when I was like, okay, like this is my dude. We're going through it together.
Good story we look back and smile upon for sure. You got a couple stories about, of all the coaches we played for, but Coach Harbaugh, really well respected in the football world, but you have some funny stories about your interactions over the years.
Yeah, he's a great coach.
He has a weird way of trying to trigger players. He loves the reaction to get a reaction out of players. And me, I was, like we've been talking about earlier, I was so like this, like I don't ever get too high or too low, and it bothered him because he couldn't rattle me. So this was probably, I'll start with my second year in Baltimore where I get moved to tight end. So I finished my first year receiver. I'm 218 pounds. Harbaugh calls me in his office on the exit meetings, is like, hey, you're an exclusive rights free agent, which means we own your rights, and we're not going to re-sign you unless you agree to play tight end. I'm like, well, I got no other option, so of course I'll play tight end. And I was like, what do I need to weigh coming back? And they're like, I don't know, try 250. I'm like, that's 30 pounds. So I did it. I went to Florida and I trained. I came back, I was 254. The first day of OTA, or first day of like off-season workouts, I walked in, 254. I see him, he's like, Dan, you look good, you look big. I'm like, yeah, thanks. He's like, how much you weigh? I'm like, 254. He's like, good. You playing wide receiver or tight end this year? And I was like, you guys told me tight end. And he was like, we'll see. And I immediately start panicking because I'm like, I can't play wide receiver at 250 pounds. I'll die. Come to the first game of the year, or first preseason game, we have a couple starting receivers who are out. They come up to me and they're like, "Dan, we don't want the young guys playing with Joe at receiver. We're playing receiver." Started the first whole half of the preseason game at 254 playing receiver, gassed. Then played the entire second half at tight end.
All while playing special teams too.
Yes. And then my second favorite Harbaugh story is probably training camp of my second year, where I already played the entire first year. He kicked me out of practice in a special teams drill. So I'm playing the 5. The 5s are like the headhunters, right? Jerry Rosberg liked to put big 5s, big guys who can run at the 5, because they usually got the wedge and stuff like that. At the time, you could have a 2-man wedge. So we were practicing, and the wedge guys are holding a bag. And he was like, if you're playing the 5, he was like, fit it up. Just show me you know what you're doing, and then you're good. Everybody else full speed. So I'm playing the 5. I run down there. Just shoulder shrug the bat. Harbaugh loses his mind. Blows the whistle. He's like, he starts cursing me out. He was like, you're the softest player I've ever seen. You're never going to play in this league. You never play another down. He was like, you can't even hit a bag full speed. And I thought he was just kidding, right? He was like, get out of here. He was like, I don't want you in this drill anymore. I thought he was like, okay, let me get a reaction out of him. I literally line up and I get back to go again. He blows the whistle to stop practice, gets in my face and was like, I told you to get the F off the field. You're too soft to play here and you're never going to play again. So leave. Go sit by the water cooler. I literally walked over there with my tail between my legs, sat down by the water cooler, and I was like, Coach, Coach Rosberg told the 5s, if you're going to do this, like do it. Before I could even finish, he said, no, F off, man. And I just immediately, I was like, I'm not going to win this. So I went and sat down. And then I went up to Coach Rosberg. I was like, listen, you need to talk to Coach Harbaugh about this. Like, I need you to have my back. And he did. So he explained it to him. I saw Harbaugh before a team meeting after practice. He pulls me aside. He said, hey, listen, I'm not going to apologize to you because you don't deserve an apology, but I shouldn't have said the F word, and then walked away.
You got to love it. And
And he wanted to fight with me. And I would never, and I was so like, I'm so like old school, like the way my parents raised me is like, don't talk back, yes sir, no sir. And I would just look at him and be like, yes sir. And he hated that. He wanted to fight. He wanted to get like a verbal altercation. And Nick's told me stories where like Nick, the older he got, would fight back with him and they would just start screaming at each other. He just wants to yell.
And he loved it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like that's what gets. That's some juice for him too.
Right.
Like how many players did he coach? How many? He's been doing it for decades.
Yeah.
And that's normal behavior too for those hanging out, like listening to this. Like, hey, is this a toxic work environment? No, it's just normal work environment in football. Just being honest with you.
Well, to me, it's just different coaching styles, right? Like some coaches have different avenues on how they're going to get the most out of their players. Some have different motivation tactics. Like that one doesn't work for me. I'm just going to look you in your eye and say, yes, sir, I'll do it better next time, and not. You know, some people like that. Some people want you to fight back with them, and then we bro hug it out afterwards. But that's just not me.
Lastly, and certainly not least, the great Dan Brown. Thank you for your time today. The trade story, because you did get traded. The one city he didn't mention, folks, is Kansas City. He doesn't say he played in Kansas City.
I do not claim.
And he should claim Kansas City.
I do not.
So talk to us about your trade from the Jets to Kansas City.
It was a cup of coffee. I was there for 18 days. It just didn't sit well. It's business, right? It is. It's business, but it didn't sit well with me in the way my agent had explained it to me. You just don't. We felt disrespected because I was a 7-year guy who had played a lot of football, and to me it was just like a pawn. So it was 15 minutes before the trade deadline in 2021. We have a Thursday night game, so we're in the building. We just had a big win against Cincinnati. We're in meetings. I get pulled out of meetings, and like immediately I got cut, because we've all been there. Like you get pulled out, you're like, bring your iPad, and it's like, okay, I'm cut. And I go up there, and it's the GM and Coach Sala, Joe Douglas and Coach Sala, and they're just sitting there, and I'm like, what is it? And they're like, listen, we don't have any other option. We didn't want to do this. He's like, but we traded you to Kansas City, and I was baffled. I was like, who traded for me? Like, I'm the 4-string tight end who plays like nothing but special teams. I've probably played 25 offensive snaps at this point, but I'm leading the team in special team snaps. I'm like, why would you want me? They're like, they requested you. Like, they're trading for the guard, all-pro guard. What was his name? Renee. Yeah. So I got traded for him. So it's like, and everybody's blowing me up. It's like, you just got traded. Player for player swaps. Like Frank Smith texted me. He was like, dude, you just did a player for player swap in the middle of the season. Like, it's almost unheard of. Like, that's big time. I'm like, I don't know. It just didn't feel right, because literally the GM and the coach looked me in my eye and they're like, listen, we don't want to move you. We have no other options. The door's not closed here. And I'm like, this feels fishy already, right? Like, you're telling me the door's not closed and you just traded me. So then I get out, I'm packing my bags. I'm like, okay, I got to be in Kansas City tomorrow, but I got a dog, so I got to drive home, take him to my parents. It's a whole ordeal. Like, what do I take? I find my biggest bag and pack whatever I can. And my agent calls me. He's like, hey, I spoke with the Chiefs. I'm trying to get some information on this. And they're like, we don't want Dan to think that he's, getting an extension here or anything. We just want to see him. We just want to get him out here and see him move and see him run around. I'm like, you can turn on the film and watch me run around. Like, this is like, I didn't feel wanted at all. And then I got there. I wasn't involved in anything. There was no urgency for me to play. And I was like, and Michael Burden, our great friend, I was like, listen, as soon as they need a roster spot, I'm gone. Like, they're gonna cut me. They don't need me.
And Bert's like, you're fine, bro. You're fine. You'll be here forever.
Yeah. And he was the most shocked person in the world when I got cut. He was like, what? I'm like, I told you this was gonna happen. They needed a practice squad tight end, so they were gonna try to sneak me to they had nobody on practice squad. They were gonna try to sneak me to the practice squad. And they tried to, when they cut me, I immediately called my special teams coach from New York. I was like, get me back. Like, I know you said the door's not closed, like, get me back. They tried to sneak me like a practice squad contract before I left town. I was like, I'm not signing that. Like, I'm not coming back here. Like, this doesn't feel good. Like, I was playing a lot in New York and you guys kind of just shafted me. I had some hard feelings toward it, which is why I don't claim Kansas City. Long story short, spent 18 days in Kansas City. Re-signed with New York. Finished the season in New York. Talked to Laurent in the hot tub, and was like, "Hey," he's like, "Are you Dan Brown?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, sorry about that." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you probably don't know as much as I did." He was like, "I had a no trade clause, and I didn't want to get traded, and the Chiefs were just going to cut me." And he was like, "And I didn't want to be cut, so I agreed to the trade with New York, but it was too late in the season where the Jets were going to take on all the salary, and the Chiefs weren't, and the Jets weren't going to give up a draft pick and take on my salary." He said the Chiefs needed a fourth tight end for the practice squad. They saw you, and they made the move. So that's why I don't claim Kansas City. But it's business. It's all business.
Wow, look at that. Good stuff out of the great Dan Brown. Thanks for coming on as always.